Breaking the news. Ukraine sparks backlash over renaming national currency. December 26, 2025. Subscribe to Defense Reports, your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. I'm Alex. Join me with Arya in the latest Deep Dive by Defense Report for a sharp, no-nonsense breakdown of the latest in global defense news, military technology, and strategic developments. And today we're going to cover, well, what might just be the biggest domestic story rocking Kyiv right now. We're diving deep into what looks, on the surface, like a minor change. The push to rename Ukraine's smallest coin. They want to switch from the Russian-sounding Kopiyka to the historically charged name, the shah.
And this is being framed by the National Bank as a powerful, symbolic final break from Moscow.
Exactly. But here's the twist. This push for symbolic sovereignty has crashed right into massive internal political chaos. We're talking the largest civil protest since the invasion began, plus intense economic pressure.
And all that friction has pushed the final vote into an unexpected, lengthy delay.
So today, we're deep diving into the sources you've shared to see how this fight for a symbol on a coin is intersecting with the much bigger fight for democratic resilience and economic stability in Ukraine.
It really shows that for Kyiv, the political battle for transparency at home is now just as critical as the military fight on the front lines.
Okay, so let's unpack this a bit. The core proposal is draft law number 14093.
Right.
And its whole purpose is to rename the Kopiyka to the shah. And this is not just some, technical adjustment. The National Bank of Ukraine is being very explicit. They're calling it a move for historical justice.
Aggressive de-Russification. That's the key phrase.
It is.
And that framing is absolutely critical. The NBU governor, Andrei Pishny, he views the name Kopiyka as a literal symbol of Muscovite occupation.
Wow.
Yeah. And you have to remember, this name was adopted way back in '92, and even then, there were nationalistic voices pushing for something different.
So this has been a long time coming.
A very long time. And if you look at the geopolitical context now, the NBU's argument, it becomes really compelling. I mean, the term Kopiyka is only active in the currency systems of states that Ukraine considers hostile.
So Russia, Belarus.
Exactly. Russia, Belarus, and that unrecognized Transnistrian region. So renaming it, it just aligns Ukraine with pretty much every other post-Soviet state that got rid of the kopeck years ago.
It's about making a final statement.
A definitive one, yeah. It's about where Ukraine belongs. And
that ideological support, it's huge. You could see it in the Verkhovna Rada. On December 18th, just a few days ago, the bill passed its first reading with 264 votes. Very comfortable.
And it wasn't just the ruling party. That's what's so interesting.
No, key opposition like European Solidarity and Batькivщина, they all rallied around it. The slogan was just, away from Moscow.
That kind of unity across party lines, it just speaks volumes about the depth of the identity shifts since the invasion.
It really does.
And you shared some polling that backs this up perfectly. In 2024, what was it? 91% of Ukrainians held a negative view of Russia.
91%.
And pride in their own national symbols is just skyrocketing. Pride in the hryvnia, the currency, it's over 50% now.
And that's up from what, about 19% back in 2011?
A staggering jump. The currency itself has become this symbol of statehood, of pride, which makes the name of even the smallest coin, disproportionately important.
It's like the public is demanding they erase any last cultural link to the aggressor. And this is where it gets really interesting historically. The name Shah isn't new. It's not something they just invented.
No, it's a reclamation.
It's a reclamation. The sources show the term itself. It means step. And it dates all the way back to the 16th and 17th centuries in Ukrainian lands.
And this just shows this amazing layer of cultural resilience,
Oh, so.
Well, even during the height of the Russian Empire, Ukrainians kept using the name Shah for Russian coins, like the 2 kopeck coins.
Right.
So they were basically keeping their own monetary identity alive through language. It was a kind of soft resistance that went on for centuries.
And it has a direct link to modern statehood, too, which is crucial.
A very specific one.
During the Ukrainian People's Republic, the UPR, back in 1917 to 1921, the law said the hryvnia was made of 100 shahiv.
Right. They couldn't actually mint the coins because the economy was a disaster.
Yeah.
But they did issue treasury stamps.
In those denominations, right? 10, 20, 50 shahs, with designs by famous artists. So for the NBU, this is a way to just, hammer home that historical legitimacy of the modern state.
They're trying to use money as a daily history lesson. That's the strategic vision. But they're also being really pragmatic about it. They know a mandatory change during a war would be a nightmare.
Logistically, yeah.
So they're planning a simple 1-to-1 ratio. The old coins and new coins will circulate together to avoid that huge, costly replacement operation.
So the NBU seems to have all its ducks in a row. It's practical, it's symbolic, and yet the whole thing got derailed. The bill was expected to get final approval, what, tomorrow? December 27th.
It's sailing through.
And then President Zelenskyy unexpectedly announces a 6-month delay, citing rigorous preparations and logistical concerns.
Which brings us to the essential question, doesn't it? Why would you slow down a wildly popular de-Russification measure that has cross-party support?
Exactly.
And to understand that caution, you have to look back at what happened over the summer. That's where you see this tension between national identity and, well, democratic standards.
Okay, let's go there. The summer crisis, the 2025 anti-corruption protests. These were so significant because they were the first major anti-government demonstrations since the full-scale invasion started. It showed that civil society is still watching.
Very closely. So let's look at the timeline. On July 22nd, the Rafah passes this bill, number 12414. Let's just call it the controversial anti-corruption bill.
And critics immediately went on high alert.
They did. They argued it would effectively destroy the independence of these key anti-corruption bodies, AGU and SAP.
And these agencies are basically the watchdogs, right? Their independence is what the West bases its support on.
It's the central pillar, the whole path to EU membership, so much of the financial aid. It all depends on those agencies being independent. This law would have given new powers to the prosecutor general, who's seen as a Zelenskyy loyalist.
And the public reaction was immediate.
And fierce.
The protests became known as the cardboard protests or cardboard Maidan because of all the handmade signs.
Right. And you had estimates of up to 16,000 people in Kyiv alone, with big protests in Kharkiv, Lviv, Dnipro, Odessa, all the major cities.
Were astronomical.
Absolutely. Critics were saying this would just kill Ukraine's European integration efforts. And it wasn't just them. EU officials actually came out publicly and called the law a step back.
Which is a huge red flag.
A massive one.
Yeah.
And it led to real consequences. The EU announced plans to withhold over $1.7 billion in foreign aid.
Wow. And when you're running a massive budget deficit to fund a war, losing that kind of money is...
It's devastating. It threatens the entire war effort.
So that financial pressure plus the pressure from the streets, it worked.
It forced a complete U-turn. Zelenskyy had to backpedal fast. He submitted a new bill that restored the agency's independence, and it passed just 9 days later. The protests stopped.
And the lesson for the government was crystal clear.
Unambiguous. Ukrainian civil society is fiercely independent, and they know that democratic standards are not a luxury. They're essential for survival.
And that history, that backlash, explains why the government is so sensitive now about the timing of any big move, even a popular one.
Exactly. They are walking this tightrope between forging a new national identity and the absolute need to maintain political stability and Western support.
And all of this is happening against a backdrop of, well, a really fragile economic situation.
Which just amplifies the caution. The financial sources you sent over, they really highlight the struggle. I mean, the economy needs extreme fiscal prudence right now, not costly symbolic projects.
And a lot of it is driven by things they can't control. Global trade is slow and weak growth in the EU.
Ukraine's main trading partner.
Right. It cut demand for their agri-food exports by 15% in the first half of 2025. That's a huge pillar of their economy.
It is. And it's not just the EU. Even allied policies are hurting. The U.S. reinstated some tariffs, and exports of specialized pipe products to the States fell by a dramatic 84% in June.
So when you look at the big picture, they're facing budget deficits near 20% of GDP. Every single hryvnia counts.
It really does.
And this economic strain is made even trickier by public trust, or lack of it.
In civilian governance, specifically.
Right. The polling from July is fascinating. 85% of Ukrainians believe corruption is still widespread. Confidence in the national government is low, just 35%.
But, and this is the key, confidence in the military is at 90%, near universal. And that gulf right there is the core problem Kyiv has to navigate. The public trusts the soldiers fighting the war, but they don't necessarily trust the politicians funding it.
So the delay of the Shah vote is basically the government afraid that even a popular symbolic law could spark another crisis if it looks like a distraction.
Or if it seems to pull focus or funds away from the front line, or away from the real anti-corruption fight.
Yes. So this whole deep dive, it reveals a nation balancing these two powerful impulses.
Which sometimes conflict.
Absolutely. On one hand, you have this unified identity demanding a clean break from Russia with symbols like the Shah.
And on the other, you have this fierce civil society, the one we saw in the cardboard protests, demanding real, functional democracy that satisfies their Western partners.
So, ironically, the delay of the Shah vote is a result of Ukraine's own democratic strength.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Ukraine's future, its path to Europe, it depends on more than just winning on the battlefield. It depends on winning the trust of its own people by implementing real, transparent reforms. The tiny Shah coin symbolizes the history they're fighting for, but those protests show the democratic spirit that gets them the support they need to win.
It's a nation fighting for its past and its future at the same time.
And showing that political integrity is itself a weapon in this war.
So the delay of the Shah vote really gives us pause. Given the economic strain, the political tensions from July, how is Kyiv going to prioritize its energy going forward? Will they focus on the politically easy, symbolic acts of de-Russification, or will they take on the tougher, riskier anti-corruption reforms that could actually unlock the aid and security they need to win? You've been listening to Defense Report by Alex and Aria, where we analyze the latest in military strategy, global defense, and advanced weaponry. Kyiv, subscribe to Defense Reports, your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. We'll catch you next time.